What is up, everyone? Welcome back to day 26 of my 31 days of Halloween themed drawing tutorials right here on YouTube. Today's video, I'm going to show you how you can draw this cool looking crow from start to finish. No time lapse, no edits. It's all in real time. So if you want to follow along and draw with me, keep watching. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and draw a crow. Starting out, I'm using a 3000 by 3000 300 DPI canvas. For my brush, I'm going to start out using my standard Inker Streamline. This is part of my cartooning brush set that's available now. And for my colors, once again, I've got this color palette pre-made, so you can download the same colors that I'm using and follow along. If you just go to my website, bjdell.com, underneath the YouTube reference material section, which I'll link this in the description below too, you can save this as a JPEG to your camera roll. Once you're back in Procreate, just come up here to the wrench icon, insert a photo. It's going to bring up your camera roll, pick that one, and then it'll load it as a separate layer into Procreate. Then you'll just go through each of the colors and long press on those to load them in. And of course, seeing this, there's not a lot of colors to this one, but this is going to be a fun tutorial. So let's start. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my color then to black, and we're going to start out with the big feather of the crow. So we're just going to do just kind of this shape here that kind of comes and kind of fades out there in the back, tapers to that back corner. We'll just kind of come around here and make sure it's super smooth. So we've got our main feather there. Of course, here, if you don't like the shape, you can always go up to your transform and you can shrink it down with freeform. You can warp it if you want to kind of play around with that. However you want to do it to make it exactly like you want. It's up to you. I think that looks pretty good though. So we'll just leave it there as I was kind of playing around and explaining that. So we've got the feather in there. Let's go ahead and do the leg next, or the kind of thigh part that has the bottom leg on it. Made a new layer here. I'm going to drag and drop this below. So it's the bottom layer now. And we're just going to come down here and just kind of draw just an ellipse there. Kind of gets smaller there at the bottom. And we're going to make a new layer again, dragging this to the bottom. Oops, made a new group accidentally. Dragging this one to the bottom. This one's going to be the head and the body. So let's come up here and let's draw a circle, holding down with one finger once we have it drawn, and then holding down with the second hand just to lock it in as a perfect circle there. Then we can drag and drop that color in there. If you want to change the size of this and drag it around, you can do that too. Let's go ahead and connect that to the body on the same layer. So we'll bring a line down there, and then we'll bring a line down here. And then we're going to kind of connect all these so we can drag and drop that to fill it in. So we've got the head, we've got the body. Let's go ahead and do another kind of thigh down there where the leg comes out. So another new layer, dragging and dropping that one to the bottom. And just bringing another one of those ellipses down there. So we've got that done. Next up, let's go ahead and do the tail feathers that are going to come out of the back here. So if you guessed it, we're going to make another new layer. Lots of layers in this. It's going to make things super easy though going forward. So watch and learn what we're going to do. New layer here, once again, dragging it down to the bottom. And then I'm just going to kind of pull out just a tapered line there. Drag that in there. Coming back up to my layers now, I'm going to go ahead and slide this to the left, and I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to come back up to my arrow here, and I'm just going to grab that and pull it in here a little further up. Then I want to drag that one to the bottom now. Let's go ahead and slide that to the left and duplicate it. And let's go ahead and go down to the bottom one, and we're going to go up to our arrow again. Shrink this down and move it back up here as well. So there we go. We've got the tail. Everything looks like a big blob right now, but these are all on separate layers. So when we go in and start to play with some highlights on here, it's really going to be easy. It's going to make things pop. So now that we've got that, let's go ahead and do the beak. So I'm going to come up to my top layer here, make another new layer. Going to my colors, I'm going to select this bluish gray right here, and that's what we're going to use for the beak. So we're going to kind of come and pull up around here, pull it out at an angle, and then down. Pull it down here, straight across, and then kind of back in so it angles there towards the front. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here so I can kind of clean up some of those lines, make it a little smoother. It's really kind of hard to do and hard to see that far out. So we'll pull in there. Maybe have this come up a little bit further here at the top where it comes back in. Start to break right there at the meeting of the head. So now let's go ahead and do the bottom beak. So once again, new layer. We're going to drag this one down underneath the one that we just did. Pull this one out and up and back in, connecting that across. And we can fill that in really easy. So there's that. One more thing I'm going to do, this top layer here, make another new layer. And we're going to select black on this one. And I'm just going to pull a tapered line in back towards the nose here, where that circle is. So I'll try that one more time here just to get it kind of lined up. There we go. That's what I was going for. So we've got the beak done. Let's go ahead and work on the actual feet. So coming down to the bottom layer here, let's make a new one, drag it to the bottom. Coming back up to our colors now, I'm going to select that darkish gray blue, and I'm going to pull in a couple kind of triangles down here for the legs. It's again because of the perspective here, this one's going to be a little bit bigger and longer than the back one. And now I'm going to zoom in here so you can see this a little bit better. I'm going to start here with a taper and just kind of really light pressing into a harder press to kind of build up the feet as they come out. Same thing here, light into a harder, coming back around like that. Kind of pull this one up into, it's got kind of like that sharper taper there towards the back. And then we're going to come down here and do the same thing here. So light press here at the bottom to start that taper up. Harder as we get back there. Same thing here, and go harder and then lighter towards the front. Doesn't matter if you want to start harder back here and go lighter, or if you want to start lighter and go harder towards the front. However you can do it the best. I know it works different for everybody else. Sometimes it's easier to have that hard press to begin with. Sometimes it's easier to have the lighter one. So there we go, we've got the feet. Last thing we need to do for the base design is get the eye in there. So let's go back up to layer 10. We're going to make a new layer. I'm going to kind of zoom in here so we can see it a little bit better. I'm going to select white here and just draw a circle in here for the eye. Holding down again with one finger and then down again with the other one. Dragging and dropping in the circle, or in the color there, to fill in the circle. We're going to come back up here now to our layers. We're going to slide this one to the left and we're going to duplicate it. We're going to come back up to our colors now. We're going to go to black and we're going to drag and drop that one in there. So it's going to be basically the pupil. Coming up here to the arrow again, I'm going to select uniform and I'm just going to drag that towards the middle there. Coming back into my colors now and selecting white, I'm just going to add a couple of highlights there inside the pupil. And pull them back out. There we go. That's our base design for our crow. Now we can start kind of defining these things. Like I said, it looks like a big blob right now, but it's not going to for long. So for here, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to airbrushing. This is just one of those default brush sets that are in Procreate. Everybody has it. And I'm going to choose soft airbrush. And then for my color, I'm going to have white selected. I'm going to drop my opacity down on the slider over here, the bottom one. Of course, you have problems with that. Top is size, bottom is opacity. And then on layer 1, that's where we're going to start. That's my wing. I'm going to go ahead and set this to alpha lock. And then I'm going to just start coming around the edge of this wing real light and starting to define that. And you can see, because we have these on separate layers now, it's starting to separate itself from the rest of the design. You can kind of see what's going on. You can see there's other layers underneath. Now that we've got that one, we're just going to work our way down the layers in the list. So this one's that back kind of haunch there. We're going to go ahead and alpha lock that one. Same thing here. We're just going to bring in the white around there and up my opacity just a tad bit. So we've got that one in there. Next up, the head and the body. I'm going to select this one, alpha lock that one. And I'm just going to pull this in, finding the right size as I start. Start to pull this white in around here. See, it starts to separate itself. So now we're seeing all those separate areas that we worked on. Now that we've got that, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one, this bottom one, alpha locking this one, and then dragging some of that color around. I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller there. Around the front and the bottom. So we've got that one there. Going back up to our layers, down to the tail now. So we're going to alpha lock this one. This is that front one. Start to bring in the white around there. Coming back up to our layers, the next one back, alpha locking that one. Drop my size a little bit as I go. These are getting smaller as we go back. Add that in there. And then finally, the last one down here, alpha lock this one and bring that in, dropping my size again. And just fading that so you can see how everything's popping now. You can see all those separate areas that we worked on. That's why we went and did it that way. I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to come in and get just a little bit around the top of the head. So that one is my layer 3 right here. Pull around there just a little bit. Now I'm going to work on the beak here. So with this top one selected, I'm going to alpha lock that one. And I'm going to come down around this bottom, down around the front there. It's like that. Now I'm going to go in here and select black. And I'm going to come in on the top just a little bit here. Define that a little bit. And then the bottom beak, once again, I'm going to alpha lock this one. Come in, making a brush smaller, come in underneath here for the black. And then hit it with white, selecting white. You can just long press here since we've got white as the background, or you can go up to the color palette, totally up to you. And I'll just hit down here underneath just a little bit. All right, pull them back out, that's what we're left with. Now let's go ahead and do the feet. So let's come down here to the bottom. Once again, alpha locking this. We'll zoom in here so you can see. Start to pull up white here in the front. Comes back. Some white here on the front here. Got the light source basically coming in from this bottom angle here. So that's where the light's going to be. Do the same thing over here. Bringing that in. Light here and on top. And then we can switch back now to black. And kind of hit down here on the bottom and on the back side. All right, so there's our crow. Next thing I want to do is I want to go back up to my layers. I want to make a new layer. I'm going to drag this one down underneath. So it's going to be the very bottom. And then I'm going to come in here with this light gray here. And I'm just going to kind of make a moon shape here in the background. I've got to switch back though to my standard inker streamline. Draw a circle back here. Drag and drop that in, and then I'm going to move that uniform selected. Just going to drag this around a little bit here until I get it to where I want it. And I think that looks pretty good there. So this, not a bad design, but there's a fun new feature in Procreate, and that is gradient maps, and that's what we're going to do next. So to do this, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to leave the eyes alone. So these top two layers, we're not going to touch, but everything from here 10 on down, we're going to pinch all these together. So these are all, and if you can't pinch them, if it doesn't work, you can always hit the layer on top and merge down. So that's what we're left with. And these eye layers are still separate. So with this layer selected, we're going to come up here and we're going to go to our adjustments layer and we're going to go to gradient map. And we're going to select a layer. And then there's so many different options here for gradient map that you can choose. I think for this one, I think the breeze looks really cool. It's got that nice pink, or the purples and the greens. I think that looks really, really cool. So let's go ahead and do that. I want to add just a tad bit more here at the end though. So let's go ahead, make a new layer here, and we'll set this as clipping mask. And then I'm going to select white. And then with my brush, I'm going to switch back to airbrushing. I'm going to come in here and just hit a little bit on the insides of these areas, just to add a little bit more flow to it, give a little bit more shine. So we'll just come in really light. Here you've got to be careful because these aren't separate layers anymore. So if you go over top, it's going to go over top of everything. So you've got to be careful of where you're doing this. You've got to have a lot of brush control right now to get this in here and not hit the parts that you don't want to touch. So we'll just add those around. Maybe add a little bit down here. Just another one in here, faded in towards the center. And see there, I hit that top. Try that again. There. And there. And then we'll go ahead and hit the tail down here. And there we go. I think I'm also going to come in here now with the black and just kind of hit down here underneath the head to kind of separate that from the body. Gives it a little bit more of that three-dimensional quality. So there we go, there's our crow. And I think to finish this off, if you go in here, I don't have this in the color palette because this isn't part of the color palette, but if you go in here and select inside the crow, let's just get kind of a light purple. And let's give a frame to this. So to do this, I'm going to go ahead first and I'm going to select all these layers using my arrow here. I'm just going to kind of pull him into the center a little bit more there. And then I also think here too with the eyes, I'm going to go ahead and group those together. Hitting the arrow, I'm going to shrink those down just a tad bit. Just maybe a little bit too big right there. I think that looks a little bit better. So once again, if we select that purple, just a light purple there. And then coming up here to our layers, let's go ahead and go down to the bottom. Let's make a new layer and drag this down underneath. Back up here and drag and drop that color in there. And then let's go ahead one more time, come back up here, make a new layer. And we're going to go ahead. Before we do that though, let's shrink this one down. So we got that one shrunk down, it's there in the center. And instead of making a new layer, let's actually delete this one. Let's duplicate this layer. And then let's go ahead and just fill it in with white. Then we're going to go back up to our arrow here. With uniform selected, we're just going to pull it in here towards the center. So we just got this nice box coming around there to frame everything. And then finally, I'm going to pick one of the darker purples here. And I'm just going to make a new layer. Come back to my cartooning brush set. And I'm just going to sign this guy down here. All right. And there we go, day 26 of my 31 days of Halloween themed drawing tutorials. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell for notifications so you can get alerted when I post new videos. If you do take part in these tutorials too and want to show off your work, share them online, Instagram or Twitter, and tag me at BJDell, or you can also post them in the Facebook group that I made for artists called Keep Creating, a group for artists by artists. So you can share these or any other artwork that you want to show off, give feedback, get feedback. It's a really cool place to be. Got a bunch of members over there constantly posting. So want you guys to be a part of it as well. And that's pretty much it. So you can find me online, bjdell.com, as well as my new podcast, Make Money With Your Art, available wherever you listen to podcasts. I'll be back tomorrow with another video. We've got a few more days left of the month. Will you be there? I hope so. So until next time, keep creating.